If you struggle drawing plants, then this garden scene is a great demo to watch. There are so many plants here, and the important thing in a garden scene such as this is to capture them using marks that allow them each to look different. Now, when I say marks, I mean in every sense, both to represent the foliage, the branches, the values. It's all about how we position things next to other things, or some plants next to other plants, so that we can tell where one ends and another starts. And as I always say, edges are very important, and hatching direction is very important as well to introduce clarity. Edges in this case is particularly going to be the silhouette edges around the outside, but also some of the edges of bunches of foliage that is capturing the light. And there are some very different types of foliage here. Along the front we have these long strappy sword-like leaves coming up and then flopping over, and these clumping plants with long thin leaves are a type of plant that often gives a great deal of difficulty in drawing. In some ways they're just an enormous tuft of grass. I have a few videos on drawing these particularly, but watch at the end when I do those exactly how they look. And if you have trouble drawing branches, I think the way I draw the bare branches in the upper right, and again this is towards the end I get to that part, I think it's going to be very, very helpful, very eye-opening perhaps, the way I do it. I don't draw them the way most people draw them, and I think that's key to getting an effect that looks realistic. Now, of course, I also want a sense of some things being closer and some things being further away, because creating a sense of depth is a way that we can create a feeling of separation between these plants. The truth is, on the paper, they're not going to be separated from each other by depth at all. The ink is all on the surface of the paper. So it's all about creating the effect of distance, of depth. At the start, I'm taking a lot of time just establishing the part of the house we can see, and I decided early on to take out that, well, before I started, to take out that trellis that's in the front there. I thought it just messed up the view of the door too much. And then I probably spent too much time doing the white curved woodwork, and in doing that probably overworked it a little bit. I probably went too dark here, or committed to lines and line direction a bit early before I'd done more of the plants. I hadn't actually noticed that the upright supports were painted dark and were actually darker than the walls behind, even though they were dark at this stage. Maybe I should have left it as if it were painted white. And if you're finding this interesting, please hit the like button for me and help me and my channel out as well. Now, you're watching this at 5 times the normal drawing speed, my actual drawing speed, but you can use that cog icon to slow the video down to half speed, which will bring it much closer to actual drawing speed, and you'll be able to see more detail of the actual mark making if you want. I have also sped up a little faster than that, running the tops of the pickets along here, because it felt like it took forever to do them, and I didn't think I'd make you watch forever for me doing them. But it is the sort of commitment that we need to make in a scene such as this. And if we rush them, they end up being too fat or looking too large, and that affects the perception of scale. We do have a sense of how large pickets are, and so sometimes we have to work out whether we've got the commitment for a certain subject if we're going to draw it accurately. Mind you, I could have just put a hedge where the fence is, and that would have worked quite well, I guess, as well. But I find in these sorts of garden scenes, trying to get layer in, horizontal layer in, is really helpful. And we've got that with the agapanthus along the front, and we've got that with the picket fence. And then we've got that in a few other places as well, not to the same extent, of course, not right across. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm still trying to find the darkness for the under the veranda area, because in some ways that's going to help me make the decision how dark the values in the shrubs and the trees will go. So when I'm looking at the plants, I'm working out as carefully as I can, okay, how big are the leaves? How do they bunch onto the tree? How does the light catch them? And what's the actual colour of the green that we're looking at? Is it a lighter green or a darker green? Now, most of the greens are fairly similar, I think, which is a bit unfortunate, but I can still choose as the artist to exaggerate one or two of them, and exaggerating the darkness of the green of one plant is again a great way of making it look just a bit different from the shrubs around it. Now, this tree on the left has a very distinctive style. The leaves are small, but the branches have an upright kind of thrust to them, and the leaves seem to sit upright as well. So I decided to do the hatching to indicate that. And of course there are some trees on the far side as well. I decided to do the roof, the corrugated iron sheets, fairly minimally, because I thought preserving a relatively blank space in this part of the drawing would give the eye a chance to rest and to help us establish what we're looking at. It will say roof, and the chimney will say chimney, and the chimney will be silhouetted against some darker foliage behind, and all of that will help us immediately see what we're looking at, to understand the scene, and that with that clue it makes it easier then to untangle some of the things that may not be so obvious. So I'm now trying to position where the roof line is, how high it goes. Generally I've pitched this a little too high. I've got the fence I think a bit high, and that's pushed everything up. I drew this chimney I think too large. It just looked to me oversized. So when I do the dark trees behind, I use that opportunity to perhaps exaggerate the darkness around the whole chimney and to shrink that top in a bit. I often say we shouldn't fret too much when we make mistakes, or at least things that aren't quite as we would have liked to have done them, because so much of the time there's an opportunity to make a correction. I'm using a 0.1 uni pen, and notice how far back I'm holding it. Now you can see what I'm doing with the tree, with the bare branches here. I'm not, as so many people do, starting at one end, the fat end, and basically drawing continuous lines right to the tip. I find that creates very long, snaky, difficult to control lines that very rarely seem to capture the feel of a real tree. More often, tree branches take quite dramatic angled changes in direction for all sorts of reasons. And also we need to appreciate, which we don't really do easily from the photo, that some of these branches are closer and some are further away. So I chose the ones I thought were most likely closer, and I drew those ones first, and then I drew ones that went behind, so that at least some of those lines, particularly the larger, the thicker ones, I could leave a slight gap where it went behind the others, and that helped to create, I think, quite a good sense of 3 dimensions. When we look at the photo and we see all these black lines that seemingly crisscross each other, it's easy to think, oh, that's good, I can just do that in the photo. But then we get bare branches that look as flat as they do in the photo. That's not what we want if we can improve it. but I clearly simplified the lines that we had in the drawing. I might have been, in the photo rather, I might have been tempted to use a 0.05 to do some thinner branches, but I decided to do this whole drawing in a 0.1. I think it is not handy, but I think it is a worthwhile exercise to try and, as much as we can, draw a whole scene using the one pen, so that we consciously work hard at getting different effects in our marks from the way we hold the pen, how lightly we press, and how fast we move it, that we really experiment and become flexible and variable in the way we draw. Because I find it's variation in our marks in all of these ways that often creates a far more engaging, a far more dynamic appearance in the finished drawing. So doing the protruding eaves there at the front. And so now the main thing I have, besides this row of agapanthus in the front, I wonder what I was doing there, is the trees at the back behind, and to finish the ones in the upper left as well. And then to just look at adjustments for overall value. So I'm wanting this roof to stand out as strongly in my drawing as it does in the photo. And I'm also wanting that white triangular pediment part on the right hand side to stand out fairly strongly as well, because that makes it very clear house all the way across, which means behind these bushes is the house, and it gives us a stronger sense of what we're looking at. If you'd like to have a go drawing this, you'll find this channel, you'll find this photo on my channel community page, or post page as they call it now, and I'll put a link in the description to the photo. So why not have a go and draw it? And if the whole thing is a bit overwhelming to draw, why not just choose perhaps the agapanthus along the front, down at the base of the drawing, or the bare branches, or one of the shrubs, maybe that rounded shrub to the center left, and just practice doing just one, which is not a bad thing to do anyway when we have a scene such as this. You can see me now making the chimney smaller and smaller. Not a bad thing to do anyway, and I did something similar to that in my mark making couple of minutes, where I just experimented with different marks for different trees and shrubs to see how they looked. And I also, I think, experimented with a little section of the fence as well. So I'm now trying to really look at overall the values and darken the areas that I think aren't dark enough, don't reflect the darkness in the reference, and then basically fill in the gaps of parts that I haven't done yet. So the agapanthus on the left hand side, you're seeing this at the 5 times drawing speed that you've seen the rest of this. When I do the other half and the grass in front, I double that speed again, because it really is just more of the same. But this took me 2.5 hours. No, it took me 1.5 hours to do in real time, which is a fairly long drawing of mine. Well, full stop, but certainly for a YouTube video. But as I said, I would suggest you, at least for some of it, slow the video down so that you can just see the mark making and how the effect is built up by layering marks over other marks. So now we're that much faster again with this right hand side of the agapanthus. And this side's catching the sun just a little bit less. And some grass down the front. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. I had a lot of fun drawing this. I've been looking forward to drawing this for a few days since I located the photo. And what do you think? I hope you give this a go, and why not, or at least parts of it. But in the end, whatever you do and however it turns out, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.